From EPAWA Weather Consulting, headquartered in Worth Whitehall, Pennsylvania, this is Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The thoughts and opinions expressed in this video are those of the forecaster alone and may not reflect those of the staff of EPAWA Weather Consulting LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Now, without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Good Sunday morning to another edition of Weather Weeklies, a rare Weather Weeklies for the month of March. We are now on March 5th, Sunday, March 5th, and I say rare because last couple of years we really haven't had to continue these into March, and it's only happened probably once or twice since we started doing the videos that we continued it this long, because what the Weather Weeklies does is look at the long-range winter pattern, and by this time usually we start climbing out of it. I know we had some cooler temperatures over the past couple of years into spring, but it wasn't really enough to say, hey, we have a big storm signal threat or something like that to continue this. But there are a few, not just one like we listed in our Friday long-range outlook, but there might be two that we have to contend with yet. But we are admittedly running out of time, okay? And there's no guarantee that either one of those will hit, but as long as there's a chance, these are going to continue. So it might go at least another week yet. We'll see. We'll see how this works out. Here's our long-range outlook for Friday, and we have obviously an up and down week this week, and we've been dealing with that. Very nice day today. As we get into generally past the 10th or 9th or 10th, we get into slightly below average, and then we have a below average period. This is actually shown between the 11th and 20th. Not too far off. If I were doing it again this morning, I'd say 13th to 20th, but either way, it's going to be below average for that entire week. Very notably below average. It's going to feel like winter that entire week. Then we start to very slowly and gradually climb out of it, slightly below to below average for the following week after that, slightly below to end March and begin April. And then I think the first 2 weeks of April are kind of like near to slightly below average. Nothing crazy cold, but still relative to average at that time, it's still going to be slightly below as a 7-day average for those time periods listed. We do have, we had this system, the winter mixed rain that was the other night. That's already passed. A cold front's going to come through here on Monday night. Could be some rain or snow showers with that. And then the next winter storm signal listed here is between the 10th and 13th time frame. I did not list a second one on purpose because on Friday it wasn't really as clear. This morning, if I was writing this long range, I probably would put the 18th to the 20th period in there as well, okay, for that. So I think those are legit two chances, probably just those two. And once you get beyond that, it's going to be a lot tougher once you get past the equinox. I know you can have snow that goes all the way into April, especially in these areas at far interior up by Williamsport, all the way over to the I-80 corridor, basically, once you get up in that area. But further southeast, especially down by the Philadelphia Metro and I-95 corridor toward the coast, you're probably done at that point. It's very, very rare to see something beyond that point. But we do have March flipping to below average as a whole after having January and February very warm, right? So here's what average snowfall is for March and April. This is updated with the latest climate information from the 1991 to 2020 period. So this is what you get in March. And surprise, somebody's going to look at this and go, wow, really? We get that much in March on average? Yes, this is a 30-year average of snowfall in the month of March between that period that I mentioned. In April, it's everywhere. The average is less than an inch, okay? So you have very little, if any, snowfall in the month of April. It has happened before, not common, and given the fact that we're going to be near to slightly below average in early April, it is possible that you get some, little dusting here and there or whatever. But it's really going to be happening. If anything happens, it's between now and about the equinox, and that's where you get these numbers here. And we are projecting the year average for this month for now to see what we're at in the coming weeks here. But if it happens, I think it's really the next 2 weeks. Okay, so these will continue probably as long as that threat is still there by next Sunday. If there's still an additional threat, we'll probably have one more Weather Weeklies video after this one. If it is not looking good and this just turns completely opposite, which I doubt, but if it does, we would stop them. Here is where we are year to date, and obviously very pitiful amounts. We did come up in a few of these areas. Allentown went up this week. This is still 5.1. Is still would be, if it finished that way, would be the lowest snowfall of any season ever recorded at this location. Which was just set 3 years ago. 5.3 was the total. So we're about 2.2 inches away from that. Not very close. Harrisburg did not change. Philadelphia did not change. Scranton, Wilkes-Barre area did go up about 3-4 inches from what we saw last week. and Newark went up a little bit. Okay, so these are still pitiful amounts, and your normal year to date is in the right column of where you should be at this day. Okay, from this day, this is where you should be in total snowfall to be considered normal. So this is well below, and it's obviously been red all season long because of that. And I don't need to get up here and tell you that, but that is basically where we're at, okay? Is anything we're going to get the rest of March, if we do get these to work out, going to save winter? Probably not, okay? It's not going to get you back to these numbers here, most likely. Not impossible, but, we'll see. Not expecting that, however. Here is the, I want to go to the system we just had a couple days ago. This is the March 3rd, 4th storm signal we had. This is what the GFS showed. It had a very good progression at the time we did the video last week. It showed basically a wintry mix snow and then some wintry mix over to rain. That is exactly what happened, okay? So this was pretty good for that lead time on the GFS, which was about... went out to about 6 days. At the same time, the European model was doing this and getting everybody excited for this big snowstorm, and it included the I-95 corridor. Obviously, that didn't happen, and I was trying to make a case of why it would not happen in last week's video because of the fact that the Southeast Ridge was going to be pushing this a little bit further to the north, and the European model is a little too overzealous with the snow that far south, and that ended up being the case. So before we get into the next signals, first I want to point out where we are in the ENSO regions as far as La Nina, ENSO neutral, and El Nino. We are still firmly in a cooler ENSO neutral. Okay, we're not in La Nina anymore. That I already declared that dead last week. CPC still has not done that today, as of now. They still have not said that we are out of La Nina. Again, I don't need them to do that. I can do my own research. I can see the numbers. I know where we are. We are not in a La Nina anymore. So anybody's telling you we're still in a La Nina needs to look at something a little bit, or they don't know what they're talking about, or they need to look at these numbers a little bit better and realize that it's not. And 7-day change, the areas that are closest to the La Nina right now are actually slightly warmer this week, so these are going to continue to go up. It went down a little bit in the eastern regions, Nino 1 and 2, but those regions are already higher to begin with. Those are already, plus 0.4 Celsius. So if it went down a little bit, that's fine. It won't be go down that far. But these regions out here, Nino 4, Nino 3.4, that are closest to what would be considered a La Nina, negative 0.5 is the threshold, are getting slightly warmer. Since then, so we're out of the La Nina. That's the bottom line. So what reason I keep bringing that up is because the Madden-Julian oscillation is running the pattern, and it is more influential on the pattern in an ENSO neutral than any other La Nina or El Nino. Okay, so that's when the Madden-Julian oscillation has its biggest influence on the pattern, is when we are in ENSO neutral. So if we're in an ENSO neutral and you're seeing this, and they're consistent on both the GFS extended and the Euro Weeklies, showing a phase 8 signal coming in this week. This is going to be, today is the 5th, so we're right about here. We're still in phase 7. We're right about where I have that X, okay? But it's in the beginning of this week, actually probably tomorrow, we're going to transition into phase 8 and remain there for about a week, and then it has it going into phase 1 and then doing this little loop here or whatever. The European ensemble is doing almost the exact same thing. It takes it through phase 1. This loops it in the circle of death a little bit, but it's coming from phase 1. So you would have the effects of phase 1 for a little bit lingering after collapsing into the circle of death from phase 1, if that makes sense. So in this time of year, in a March ENSO neutral, okay, this is a mild phase, so kind of like up and down, which is what we'll be dealing with in this first week, right? This is a warm phase in phase 6. It's a warm phase in phase 5, warm phase in phase 4. But both of these are cold phases. Cold, both of them, okay? So if we're transitioning to that, this is what's going to be running the show. It's not going to be sudden stratospheric warming. It's not going to be... the pattern that's been going on all season long. It's just, this will change. This is what we've been waiting for all winter, and it's finally here. It's just coming at the wrong time, right? So here is, where was this in January, right? Here's what a phase 8 looks like in an ENSO neutral in the month of March, and you can see we are colder, a lot colder here in the eastern U.S., and if, I've been seeing some things on Twitter and especially, and some other from experts that are saying, well, we're not going to be in phase 8 that long. We're going on a phase 1, so this cold isn't going to last that long. Well, I don't know what you're looking at, but that's what a phase 1 looks like in March in a neutral ENSO, which is cold across the entire nation. So well, you still get a blocking signal up here. It's west base, but still blocking. If you notice, the blocking over here in phase 8 is right over Greenland, and it's in a good spot. That's your Greenland block there, and you have this cold underneath, but you have an expansive block that goes all across from the northern Pacific all the way over into northwest Canada. This entire blocking pattern sets up cold underneath, and that's what a phase 1 is. So it's cold either way. Whether it goes into phase 1 or not is irrelevant. It's just going to be cold regardless. So we know that that's going to happen. This is not like something we're guessing at. Well, maybe it's going to flip next week and it'll be warm again. No, it doesn't work like that. Okay, it's not going to work like that because we're too close to this event for this to be this wrong. We're talking about phase 8 being reached probably tomorrow. Okay, it's not going to be wrong for that. If you're talking about maybe looking 2 weeks down the road, okay, maybe I can see it flipping a little bit. But this is not going to be wrong at this range. So as a result of that, the North Atlantic Oscillation, which is a measure of your blocking, it's actually pretty low right now because it's kind of centered over Greenland, and it will rise. Now don't follow this blue line here. We're going to follow this line here. This is kind of like where the mean is, the green line. See, it rises it's negative right now, and it's going to be really negative early this week. But it starts to rise toward neutral. Doesn't quite get there. Might get there around, maybe toward the end of the month here, right? But it's still kind of hanging around near to slightly negative here through this entire stretch. This is on the Euro Weeklies, but the GFS extended is pretty much doing the same thing. And they all have this dip and then sudden rise here right around the time of our storm signal, which is in the 10th to 13th period right in here. So usually when you have the NAO recovering like that and rising toward neutral, you can get some snow events out of that in that scenario. So that's why we're interested in that 10 to 13th period in large part. We also have the EPO, which is your cold air source, cross-polar flow, right? So this is showing negative for much of this upcoming week, and that's going to eventually. Now this has a lag. All these have a lag a little bit by a couple days before it affects our sensible weather. That's why it's not coming in until around the 10th or thereabout, or 9th or 10th or something like that. But it does rise toward neutral again once we get out toward the time frame of our storm. Okay, so yeah, and then at the same time, the ridge in the western United States is also rising. It's negative like it's been all winter. Negative PNA we've had whole winter, right? Rising toward neutral and maybe even going slightly positive here once we get past our storm to the following week. Okay, so the teleconnections are lining up. The Matt and Julian oscillation is lining up. So the cold's coming in, and now we just need the storms, right? So let's take a look at the 10th to 13th storm signals. The GFS that ran this morning. I don't have the new one at 12Z because I'm recording this before that. But you can see this GFS has not been thrilled with this idea of this being anything other than some showers as this rotates through. This is rain showers. There's no wintry component to this whatsoever in the 6C, and this is next weekend, right? It does have wintry across Michigan and parts of Ohio here, eastern Great Lakes, but nothing here, okay? European model ran last night, looks a little bit different, and that's what it does, okay? It has snow, at least northwest of I-95, and then it wraps up near the coast and gives you additional snow in our eastern areas. I don't know if this evolution is going to be correct, and we don't know which one of these are going to be correct, but I will say that this does have ensemble support. From that one that showed all rain, this is the GFS ensemble for that same period, and it does show snow accumulating across our region. So if that's the case, then the GFS operation might be out to lunch. The European ensemble is doing something similar. I'm going to stop this when it gets to that point. Okay, here's what the GFS ensemble has. It has mainly in the interior, which is believable. That's fine. But the European ensemble has this all the way down here as far as this, accumulating snow line. So it is a little bit further southeast. But the point here is this is the GFS ensemble. That is the GFS operational that I just showed that was all rain, right? The ensembles largely disagree with that and are showing snow, whereas the GFS operational didn't have that. So this is run an additional 30 times, taking the GFS different set of algorithms with the same initial conditions and run again another 30 times. And it's showing, the mean anyway is showing some snow here. So that's a red flag to me. That probably won't be, it could be a slop event like we've had before. That is possible. And it's because we just have, during that period, we have just slightly below average temperatures. It's not like really cold. It's not till after the storm exits from the 13th to the 20th that I have for a below average period, okay? So it would be a little easier if you're already firmly below average at this point when this came in, but that's not the case. And there is likely to be additional signals beyond the 10th to the 13th signals. If this doesn't work out, okay, you still have another shot. Here is that first system, right? And the European ensemble. And that's dry for several days, 13th, 14th, 15th. Once you get out to the 18th to 20th period, watch this. This is coming in at that time right there. Look at that. Okay, now this is the 18th to 20th period where we have another storm signal coming in here. And it's not listed in a long range yet. But if this continues, I will certainly introduce that. Why is this notable? Because that period is below average. Not slightly below, it's below average between the 13th and 20th. This is the, look, here's the 13th to 17th, below average. 18th to 22nd, below average. Okay, when I say below average, it's going to be significantly below average. Here's what we have on the European ensemble. Slightly below to start, but then look at this below, all these greens coming in here. This is firmly below average temperatures for that entire week, for that entire second storm there. So there are two opportunities, and I don't want to dismiss the rest of winter saying, well, it's probably not going to happen because the GFS says so, or my app says so. That's not how this works, folks. Not how this works, okay? And this is just the European ensemble, but I can show you anything. This is the GFS extended, doing the same thing for that particular week, okay? It does moderate at the end of the month to slightly below instead of firmly below, and that bleeds into, this goes all the way through the 8th of April here. Here is the Euro Weeklies doing the same thing. You got that below average period coming in here between the 13th and 20th, right? Then it goes to slightly below to below average for a while. Once you get into early April, you're near to slightly below average. Okay, first half of April, still favoring slightly below average temperatures at that point. So bottom line here is I don't rush through that whole thing because I really don't have a firm grip on what's going to happen next weekend. We're going to continue to follow that throughout the week, but I can't throw the towel yet. I just can't. We have those, I think those two chances are probably our last legitimate chances. And if the first one doesn't work out and ends up being more like the GFS is showing right now, where it's a slop mess like we've been used to, then that's okay because we'll still have another one on its tail in the 18th to 20th time frame. I think once you get past that and past the equinox, these are going to be less likely. So perhaps another, as long as that 18th to 20th period is still possible, I will have another Weather Weeklies video next Sunday. Not going to be as in depth as we have throughout the season because we don't have much to really talk about other than that signal. But we will still have another one next week, and I'm at least planning on that right now. But these are going longer than we've been used to, certainly. So just to summarize here, we're watching the next few weeks for the late season wintry heroics, and some areas seeing snow, and that's going to be in that 10th to 13th time frame, and again on the 18th to 20th. Those are our two. Still expecting up and down temperatures for the period through the end of the first week of March. That's probably till about the 8th or so, and then after that we get slightly below for a couple days through our storm threat, and then behind that even colder relative to average, below average temperatures coming in between the 13th and 20th. That's where you see here, more consistently below average, but most notably between the 13th and 20th, and a cooler spring start, okay? It's not going to be brutally cold. It doesn't mean April is going to be a complete wash. If you're near to slightly below average that month, it's not going to be really that noticeable because you got to remember that average highs and lows are going up, okay? Average highs right now are getting up into the mid to upper 40s, okay? By the time we get into April, I mean, you got temperatures going well into the 50s for normal highs, so slightly near to slightly below average isn't going to cut it for snow, unless something came in at night and you got, maybe lucky, I guess, or unlucky, however you want to look at it. But it's not really common in April to see snow anyway, and we're going to start transitioning a little bit. So if you're one of those people that are keep asking about when should I plant stuff, I'm not a botanist. I don't know. So that's not my area of expertise, but I can give you the weather, and I can tell you that it's going to be a cooler start to spring this year, most certainly, and especially this month. If you're trying to plant anything this month, you're probably wasting your time. Even though the daffodils have already been coming up in certain places, they'll continue to do so over the next couple of days. It's not unheard of for that to happen, but I want to go planting things that are sensitive plants that are susceptible to cold, because that's not going to work out for you very well. I'm EPAWA meteorologist Bobby Marchus. That's this edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, March 5th. Again, still planning on having another one next week unless that threat disappears. But otherwise, take care and make sure you follow the daily forecast videos throughout the week on that system for next weekend. Take care.